So do you want to hit the beginning of number 6? I know that it's got one of your favorite words in it.
Specificity. Specificity. There we go.
You have to
I
look
feel
at
like
it closely.
the pinnacle kid, Specificity.
Yeah.
Specificity.
Yeah. So it's going to require more of that for conducting a risk analysis.
Specific stuff.
Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right. Protect your patients day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right.
Security rule changes released. Wow. So we've been looking for this for a long time, Donna, and it finally is coming.
They are here, and we saw it coming.
Yep. Yeah, we did. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on episode 492. Knocking on the door 500.
Wow.
Yep. But before we dive into that, we do want to say, if you want to know more about Donna's day job, go to cardinatesq.com. You can find out everything about her there. If you're interested in HIPAA for MSPs, you can go to HIPAA4MSPs.com. If you're an MSP and you want to do things around HIPAA, which we'll be talking about today, you want to pay attention to this episode for sure. Then you can find out more there about that. But the thing I really want everybody to pay attention to is our once a year PriceSec boot camp is coming up. It's scheduled. The place is booked. We're ready to go.
Yeah, and when we finish going through this, you'll know why. You know that we keep these small on purpose. We can't handle,
the truth. Can't handle the truth.
Oh, shit. To do the quality that we intend to provide, we limit the number of people. So, we know where that kind of is, and we already have people who have like reserved spots before we even booked had the ability to book. They already had reserved their spots because they're in the club. And so just saying, if you want to go check it out at PriceSecBootCamp.com.
So for those of you who've never heard before, PriceSec stands for privacy and security. It used to be called the HIPAA boot camp, but we had so much to talk about around privacy and security that, it dealt with HIPAA, but it transcends HIPAA.
Yeah, it's way more, but this what we're going to cover here with these security rule changes is kind of explaining why we called it PriceSec boot camp instead of just HIPAA boot camp, because there was more you had to do than most people understood.
Oh yeah. And will for a while, but we've been saying this for a long time. So we're going to get into it because there's a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, or NPRM for us acronym folks. So let's talk about it. It's going to be the first round here. And this dropped not too long ago, like, I don't know, it was like after 5 p.m. on the, 27th.
Yeah, it was like when it, like a Saturday or the Friday or something like that. And, I was out to dinner with friends, let's just say, testing the different cocktails and things and having a blast, and get this message from you. And I'm like, then reporting on what it's, and then everybody's like, not now. Okay. All right. I'll put it down.
I was like, it dropped. It's here. We've been waiting.
I had things to do. I wasn't looking. So there's 2 pieces, and of course, links in the show notes. There's a fact sheet the fact sheet itself is huge. And then you have the actual Federal Register where the details are, and that's the NPRM. And in order to do commenting, you should really go read the Federal Register part, which is almost 400 pages long if you dump it to a PDF. Just FYI, and it's T90 print. So I haven't read it all yet. Have you, David?
No, I have not.
Have you read anything but the fact sheet?
And your show notes.
And the little bit that I've been able to read. So I read the opening, and there is a good bit in the opening where they explain things. So you go to the Federal Register, and you can read the details, and then you can go and make comments. That's how this works. And anybody in the whole wide world can submit a comment on or before March 7th is the current date. Mm-hmm. Often with things this big, they will extend that comment period, but there's some things that they've made a point of saying that there is some timeliness involved in this because every day we're not doing better cybersecurity, we're risking patient lives. Patient safety is our big risk that, we need to make sure that people are aware of in this. So get the riveting read.
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself for riveting read.
And, this comes on the heels of a pretty bad year for healthcare data breaches. So I don't think there's going to be too much problem with them pushing through whatever they want to do within reason.
Yeah. Well, and this, we've said this is a bipartisan thing. It's really a nonpartisan thing anymore. I mean, right. Because this is not, we couldn't do the surgery. And that delay, or we couldn't give them the chemo and that delay. So there's a lot of things, or we didn't have access to this device. We could do everything else, but this device would have made it more likely that you wouldn't have had these problems. So and there's a lot of things that I don't think people truly understand the impacts of. And if you do, then you know why this is important. So here's the thing. So we got this right now. You got to March 7th to make your comments. Say whatever you want to say. Hey, I think this is cool, or this ain't going to work. Whatever you want to say.
Right.
And then they reply, not necessarily to each and every comment, I'm sure. But they reply to anything, the things that are brought up, and make adjustments to the rule. And back when we did high tech, that came out in 2009, and then there were a lot of adjustments that were made before the final rule. And it was very different how the breach assessment happened, because they realized the way it was worded originally, there was no way anybody was going to report a breach. They would be like, yeah, there's not going to be any harm. That was all they had to do. Well, no, it'll be fine. Everybody's good. Put some dirt on it. And and so now we have the 4-factor assessment that you have to document. So this is quite different. So anyway, once they do the final rule, then we have 60 days of the final rule. When it's released, you got 60 days before the changes become effective. And then you technically are having, according to law, you have 180 days then from that effective date before they could, you're liable for compliance, let's call it. So overall, you end up, with a few months to get her done. And, if you want to comment on the timing of these things, of how much time you believe we need, keep in mind they have specifically said timeliness of this relates to patient safety. So just keep that in mind, which they do a couple of things. And like the business associate agreement, they're like, yeah, we'll give you a year from that. You get an extra year because that's contracts. But I don't know. I think a lot's going to depend. I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is that this thing's here. And here's the best news when I was reading it, David.
What's that?
I know you felt it too when you were reading it. And I know especially you were like, I was right, he says. But if you've been listening to all of our episodes that have been telling you since 2019, we were like, implement and adopt HICAP and have solid documentation. If you've been to our boot camps, you know that's been documented that you're documenting, and written policies and procedures and all of those things. And if you had really done the things that we were suggesting to be done, you would really have the vast majority of this already done. You would already be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd just be like, oh, okay. Yeah, just a little bit more work, but okay.
Yeah, there's a couple, but there's nothing that is substantial. Now, there are some substantial things from a business associate perspective that we're going to touch on, but not that would require you to make massive changes, right? And it's things like, okay, we're going to stop with this required and addressable. Everything's required.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I love that.
So glad. Yes, okay. Please.
Because everything's required, you just have to do it in a different way, was not apparently getting through to people. So we don't have to cover that anymore.
Yeah, just say required.
Yeah. And really what they're saying is they're really codifying specific activities that have to occur. That are critical to protecting the security of ePHI as requirements and provide greater detail for such requirements in the regulatory text is exactly what they said. So there's a lot of details.
Yep.
But the bottom line is it's things like, okay, the SRA, you should have a complete and thorough mapping of your data, where it moves on your network, and a complete inventory of all your technology, not just your computers. I got one the other day. Here's my assessment from 2023, and it says see computer list. That's your inventory. See computer list. Okay, let's step back. But all they did was put those specific things in a lot of ways, and that's great. I mean, how many times we did a whole episode on HIPAA's is vague or something, trying to explain that it's not really. Everybody complained about it being vague, and it was long ago. And it's for those people, it is way going to make them happy. But basically, if you've done the documentation and you've done a lot of the things that we've been saying you should be doing, or where we're going, or what you should be planning to do, this is not going to be a big deal.
Right.
That's the good news. Not a big deal. We'll go with that anyway. So, but what is cool is we're gonna go into the things that are on the fact sheet, the details, because we haven't read enough. But for those special people, who are special besides David?
Yeah. So the first one we've already hit on.
The Cardin Club and HIPAA for MSPs folks, we're gonna do special things with y'all. You know that we do that, and Absolutely. You're gonna have your exclusive sessions tailored for how we get your feedback. We're gonna do all of those, and both of those groups also get discounts to the Price Act Boot Camp, which. This is why you need to do all of those things, including the boot camp. So there you go. Anyway, so now didn't want to miss that part because that's important. If you're one of those people, know that we're going to give you more. Yep. We usually do.
Absolutely, we do.
All right.
Hit it. So here we go. This is our first pass at these, and as we said, 400 pages, not digested, but. So we talked about the first one, removing the distinction between required and addressable, implementation specifications. I'm glad they're doing this. We had to spend time every boot camp with every client talking about what does required and addressable really mean. Yeah. And so I'm glad it's all just going to be required.
Yeah, they're going to give some limited exceptions, and I'm looking forward to reading some of those. Because right away, I'm like, oh, you're going to need to address it, but they do. Because you can't require the medical device to be encrypted if the vendor won't let you encrypt it, right?
Yeah, right.
you could hurt people. Patient safety, if you mess with it, okay, well, all right, now I can't require it. So there's going to be some of those scenarios.
Right.
But.
All right. Number 2, require written documentation of all security rule policies, procedures, plans, and analysis. So do we need to talk about documentation? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you often hear this, though. This is where I think is a little different. We often hear you have to document your policies and procedures. This takes it a step further. What were your plans and what type of analysis did you do that is documented?
Mm-hmm.
So, and now we talk about this, you and I do, and we talk about this on the podcast where it's like, hey, if you're doing something that's related to your policy or your procedure, or you're doing some type of mini SRA, then document what you found, why you made that decision, and all that. We talk about all that.
Yeah, we do.
So
it's one of those things where if it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Right.
And that is only valuable in a criminal trial. So we're not talking about that. So
yeah. Well, where it says document your plans, what I'm afraid we might see is somebody document that they plan to do this later.
Yeah.
So
I had somebody hand me a risk analysis one time. They said, this is our risk analysis. It was like 5 pages. And it said the first item on their risk analysis was you need to do a risk analysis next month. And I'm like, what the, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
all right. Number 3, update definitions and revise implementation specifications to reflect changes in technology and terminology. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but that's stuff, we need to have a definition of AI, multi-factor authentication and those kind of things. And, include those and
bring our verbiage up to date.
Mm-hmm. Our glossary.
That's right. Number 4, add specific compliance time periods for many existing requirements.
Yeah, and I don't know. I gotta dig. We're gonna hit on some time periods that are included in here, and I think that's for the most part what they're talking about. But there may be others, and I'm digging in. But we're about to go through a whole bunch of very specific time requirements.
Yeah.
And so there you go.
All right. Now we're gonna get to some more of the juicy ones. Number 5, require the development and revision of a technology asset inventory and a network map that illustrates the movement of ePHI throughout the regulated entities' electronic information systems on an ongoing basis, but at least once every 12 months, and in response to a change in the regulated entity's environment or operations that may affect ePHI.
Okay. Again. That's the, how often do you do a risk analysis? Every 2 years. Okay, that's the wrong answer.
Right.
And we've been, trying to get that across. I think hopefully this will. It's not every year. You do it when you need to do it. And there are a lot of things that cause it. It's kind of like, well, in 6 years, we've never had to sanction anybody for a security violation.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. How's that possible?
Yeah. So that tells you, you're not doing things. There's no way that in 6 years, no one violated a policy and procedure under security.
Now, here's the thing I think is a little hard for this one because, we often talk about same words, different meaning.
Yeah.
This says that you need a technology asset inventory and a network map. If you stop there, when you ask your IT person, they're going to give you something that does not match this rule.
That is correct.
Because this says to illustrate the movement of ePHI. That is not what an asset inventory and network map from an IT guy will do.
No, because they generally don't know where all the ePHI is.
Right. Yeah.
They have no idea where it's coming and going and moving for the most part. and so there's and to draw the map, and again, this is one where I want to really get into the definitions on it. I like the technology asset inventory, so we don't get just the computer list anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get into a lot more details on how they define the network map. I know what we do. We have a create, receive, maintain, and transmit worksheet so that we can say, all right, I want you to sit down and think about all the places that it gets created, all the places that, and we create those and then tie them back together. So, trying to draw that out when we'll see how that goes. We're going to look at how that works. I've tried to draw it before, and anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot. So do you want to hit the beginning of number 6? I know that it's got one of your favorite words in it.
Specificity. 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 There we go.
You have to
I
look
feel
at
like
it closely.
the pinnacle kid, Specificity.
Yeah.
Specificity.
Yeah. So it's going to require more of that for conducting a risk analysis.
Specific stuff.
So it says new express requirements would include a written assessment that contains, among other things, a review of technology asset inventory and network map. No, same words, different meaning. Right?
Well, they're talking about the one in number 5. So
Are they?
yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you on here, but in there they're talking about we want you to create this because you need it in this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So again, if that is what they mean, and you show me this as a technology person, that's not what I'm going to give you.
No, I'm going to show you where the internet connects on all your different little lightning bolt things. And
exactly. Here's all the computers and stuff, and here's how all they're connected. And you're going to say, well, what about the data? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. You got to do that.
All right. B, identification of all reasonably anticipated threats to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of ePHI.
Oh, really? Not just the confidentiality?
Yeah.
We never look at it. We don't have to worry about it. Oh, but you could blow it up and make it be lost forever or no longer valid. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Which these are things we've covered in the boot camp for years about doing. So anyway, just saying. Mm-hmm. C, identification of potential vulnerabilities and predisposing conditions to the regulated entity's relevant electronic information systems. Whew.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd probably ask ChatGPT to explain that.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I got potential vulnerabilities. I'm not so sure about the predisposing conditions.
Well, yeah. What they're talking about is in your relevant electronic information systems, what in them would make them more vulnerable to these vulnerabilities. So there's a vulnerability, but you don't even use that type of equipment. Okay, there's a Linux patch. I don't even use Linux, so I don't need to worry about Linux patches, okay? But, there's a Windows Server patch. Well, I've got a Windows Server, so now I immediately have a bigger issue that there's a vulnerability in a Windows Server. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the predisposing condition is the fact that you have Windows. And a patch could be a vulnerability.
Yeah, true that.
I mean, it is. It could be a vulnerability to the accessibility because, it's been known to crash stuff. All right. And D in the list here, an assessment of the risk level for each of the identified threat and vulnerability based on the likelihood that each identified threat will exploit the identified vulnerability. So just scoring it, risk levels.
But again, this is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So nothing terribly new there, I don't think. But anyway, number 7, require notification of certain regulated entities within 24 hours when a workforce member's access to ePHI or certain electronic information systems is changed or terminated.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go read what they're talking about there. I mean, I could come up with a bazillion different scenarios, but I haven't read the details. That one seemed the most, but the 24-hour notice, how many times have we talked about, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we can't get 24-hour notice when somebody gets fired for something malicious.
Yeah, so there's that. See, there's another predisposing condition. People. We have people.
Yeah.
We're predisposed to problems. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. We got one, I think it was Saturday or something like that. Holiday weekend, right? Saturday, 6:00 p.m. Please remove so-and-so. They're no longer employed. I'm like,
what?
Surely you knew before the holiday weekend, Saturday afternoon, that they were terminated. What I think is somebody was sitting at a Christmas party and was like, "Oh crap, I forgot to tell IT that we cut this person. Let me put a ticket in real quick."
That, or they were at the Christmas party, did something that got them fired right then and there.
That may be the case too.
Could be the thing there too. So I don't know.
But yeah, it was like, oh man. Number 8, strengthen requirements for planning for contingencies and responding to security incidents. Specifically regulated entities would be required to, for example, establish written procedures to restore the loss of certain relevant electronic information systems and data within 72 hours.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got 72 hours to get this back up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Hope it don't go down on a Friday.
Well, yeah, and now they are saying certain relevant ones. So it's not going to be you have to be completely up and running in 72 hours. There is a certain level of understanding that that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
But to get access, you don't want to be completely without access more than 72 hours. And I think that's really a big thing.
All right. So 8B is perform an analysis of the relative criticality of their relevant electronic information systems and technology assets to determine the priority for restoration. So yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time.
You wouldn't believe the number of times. So we ask on our assessment, do you have a plan for what order things need to be restored? And people are like, why would we do that?
Yeah. What's most important?
Or do you have dependencies? I mean, there's a ton of reasons, but that's like, they're treating us like, well, you're just stupid.
You're not.
You're asking too much.
Yeah.
Clearly you don't understand. There's a carve out for dental. They don't have to do all of this.
You take this more seriously than we do.
I know.
Right? All right. C, establish written security incident and response plans and procedures documenting how workforce members are to report suspected or known security incidents and how the regulated entity will respond to suspected or known security incidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, that's always been there.
I know.
This is not new. It's always been there, but specificity to be, we got to get in there. The C, the details, how detailed they have it, but these are not new things. And, there's a couple of new things. We're about to get to some new things, some big new things.
Yeah.
But so far, it's pretty much stuff we should already be doing. I mean, if you were doing hiccup and CPGs and doing the what you're supposed to do under HIPAA instead of trying to do the bare minimum you thought you needed to get by, you would already be doing these things. So for the most part. All right, moving right along. Now we're getting into the little bit more interesting.
Yeah. The last one on this one is implement written procedures for testing and revising written security incident response plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, what we do at the boot camp, David. What did we do at the boot camp?
We implement written procedures for testing and revising. Yeah, we do tabletop exercises, and we go back, and after we do that, and we evaluate what happened and what can be improved, and that's how we
show
teach
you.
those.
We literally have you do it and
Yep.
experience the confusion because, well, I need somebody that knows this. Well, you don't have anybody that knows that. Okay, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do these things. And anyway, moving right along.
Yeah. So notice it does say not just create the procedure, but implement the procedure.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just
and
saying.
Yes, that's, I'll never forget the guy who years ago first started with us, and we do these questions. You have a policy for this, and he's like, no. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I need. So goes and makes all the policies and is all proud to do the next assessment. Yes, I have it. And it says, do you have proof you're doing it? And he's like, no. I had lunch with him a couple of weeks later, and there was this. I was getting a side eye. Do you have documentation? Can you prove? It was great.
All right. Number 9, require regulated entities to conduct a compliance audit at least once every 12 months to ensure their compliance with the security rule requirements. Whoa.
Okay. This, again, something that should be built in, should already be doing a regular review of your policies and procedures, including an audit, to see if they are being followed and working as intended.
Mm-hmm.
We have a section in the boot camp where we cover the importance of auditing the policies and procedures from both perspectives. And if you can do it so that you're checking everything in your system over a 12-month period. Right? You don't have to do the entire system in one event, but you need to review the whole system. And so this would be a shock to many people. But again, this is built into our policies and procedures and always has been.
Yep.
Here's the biggest one, I believe.
Yeah. So business associates, time to listen up. Now, everywhere before now where we've said regulated entities, that does include you, just to make a point.
Just
clear.
so you know. But this is specific.
But this specifically says require that business associates verify at least once every 12 months for covered entities, and that business associate contractors verify at least once every 12 months for other business associates.
So you're downstream.
Yep, they have. That they have deployed technical safeguards required by the security rule to protect ePHI through a written analysis of the business associates' relevant electronic information systems by a subject matter expert, and a written verification that the analysis has been performed and is accurate. So does that mean, Donna, that I can't do my own analysis of that? Do I have to have a third-party subject matter expert come in? Can I be the subject matter expert? How does that work, Donna? Explain to me. Explain.
It just says by a subject matter expert. It doesn't say third party. But can you prove, here I am. I know people are going to say we're not subject matter experts. Or, if we were cool like Nick Rodriguez, we would say SMEs. SMEs.
SMEs. Yeah.
Nick says SMEs. Anyway, shout out to Nick. Anyway, the whole point is, and I'm going to get further into that definition, but the fact that we've said, and it's in our policies and procedures, it's in every part of our program for managing it, it's in all of our courses, is you need to vet your vendors every year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is taking that responsibility off of the upstream and putting it on the downstream.
Yeah.
And then if you are a business associate, now you have to do that with all of your upstream.
Mm-hmm.
What you going to do?
Do it. Just gonna do it.
do it. Do it.
Yeah. I mean, so if you're an MSP, you're a business associate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to go to all of your healthcare clients that are covered entities or business associates. And even more fun is that our vendors who are our business associates, like backup vendors and such, now they have to do the same thing for us. Of course, you know what they'll do? They'll like, here's the web page, go visit it. It's got the information.
Yeah. Well, you know, though, that's very much like the new PCI requirement for if you have your website that's hosted and you're putting like the Stripe frame in it, you're supposed to get some sort of written acknowledgement from the hosting provider that they are following PCI standards and proper security standards.
Yep.
And, you know, I've had, you know, trying to get that from people right now. You know, a few months ago, I was trying to get ours and they're like, we can't give you that. And I was like, all I need you to do is send me documentation saying that you follow those standards. And the guy's like, oh, that's it? Yeah, that's it. You know, that every year you just need to confirm with me that you're still doing the work. So, anyhow.
Yeah, the thing that scares me about this, it's not the doing it, it's that you're going to have shysters coming out of the woodwork saying, we're subject matter experts and we will give you a written certification. It's X number of dollars, and you're going to have people fall for it.
Yeah. Now you've got to pay me $15,000 for me to give you this report, and you're a small MSP. And but it's also not some thing where you review it and you go, yep, you've got the paperwork.
Yeah.
So,
or the other thing too is, what if, let's just say MSPs, for example, let's say MSPs are subject matter experts on this. And now they're saying we can do this, but they have to provide written certification. Now, what liability are they now accepting because they're providing written certification on this?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're not a subject matter expert. You might be, and you might be able to do this. But what liability are you now taking on for doing it?
Yep.
Are you willing to do that? Do you have insurance to cover it?
There's a lot. This one to me has the most implications, and it's not like it requires a ton of work. I mean, again, you should have already been doing the work, all of those things, but to do it this way, I got to get into the details. This is one area where I'm going to really spend a lot of time understanding it so that we can comment appropriately. But when you look at there, a large number of vendors are massive. Got it. But there's a large number of vendors in the healthcare ecosystem that work with the big entities that are still small businesses. And how this, you know, we know there's certifying entities like, you know, High Trust and others that are going to come around and say, well, you just need to pay us out the wazoo so you can have this certification, and then it's all taken care of for you. Yes, but no. Yes, that would be helpful, but it's super, super expensive. And, you know, it would basically say you're just not going to be able to be in this business anymore.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that MSPs have always had to really ask themselves. And now they're going to have to ask themselves again, is this an industry I want to service? Or do I want to run away from this? Not just healthcare, but anything that touches healthcare. You could say, I only want to do accounting firms, but you're going to have accounting firms that are business associates. Yep.
And you're going to have to do, I mean, it's not just the MSPs that have to worry about it. Imagine the folks who are business associates that aren't MSPs.
Oh, yeah. They'll have been a harder time doing this.
Right. And their business is, let's say, transcription or, you know, billing. Then you're in something where it's not like I just decide I'm not going to do it. Healthcare is my business. And you know, I even look at mine. Now, we don't keep PHI. We don't do it. But, you know, we try to, you know, make sure it always stays on the client system. If we get it, it's only for us to say, yep, and then give it back and get rid of it. You know, we're very, very careful about that. But it still is something that I plan on figuring out how I'm going to do, because I'm not going to say, well, I don't have ePHI, I'm going to skip it. I signed the BAAs for a reason. But you know what? I'm going to be going to my vendors and I'm going to be saying, give it to me. Here's here's what I need to see. And then my question goes to the next level of, it says an analysis. Are you saying technology safeguards is all it mentions? So I don't have to know whether they're actually doing anything other than installing equipment. What are the technology safeguards? So now I've got even more questions. So this one, I have the most problems wrapping my head around what all is involved. There's too many questions. Gonna have to get into the details, and stay tuned to this bat channel.
All right, we'll move on to some less confusing. Number 11, require encryption of ePHI at rest and in transit with limited exceptions.
Yeah, we already knew that. So
yeah. So simplify that argument. Number 12, require regulated entities to establish and deploy technical controls for configuring relevant electronic information systems, including workstations, in a consistent manner.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. New express requirements would include A, deploying anti-malware protection. Thank you for not saying antivirus.
Yes.
B, removing extraneous software from relevant electronic information systems. So keep your stuff clean.
Yeah, all that bloatware, because I bought it at the office supply store off the shelf. The bloatware is got to go.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but, look up the word extraneous, and basically you're going to figure out that if you ain't using it, or if it doesn't need to be there, you need to get rid of it. So all this junkware, or Susie wants to be on Facebook during work time, and Tom wants to be looking at bidding on stuff on eBay or whatever, and he's installed some app or plug-in, and that crap's got to go.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I do a regular, I got an extra 20 minutes. I'm going to go through my software list on my computer. Now, you and I have got a bunch of crap on our computer, and there's
not
a
anymore,
reason.
Baby.
Oh,
not
you got
anymore.
the new one. You got the new one.
I got a new one, and that's the first thing I did is I nuked everything I can nuke. But used to, I don't know about you, but for me back in the day, probably every year or two, I used to just completely wipe my machine and start over.
Yeah, I don't
do that anymore.
Yeah,
I don't do it anymore, but used to do it.
Yeah, when you had time.
Yeah, I had that thing I don't have anymore. So anyway, but just keep the stuff clean. The other thing about keeping it clean is you're reducing you're reducing your risk. You can reduce it too, but anyway, you're doing that. All right, C, disable network reports in accordance with the regulated entity's risk analysis. So close the ports.
Yeah, but again, it's in accordance with your risk analysis, which is what's been said on this kind of stuff for years. It's always been said that. So it's anyway. I'm not.
Yeah.
Step away from the mic. Okay.
13. This will be fun.
Yeah.
Require the use of multi-factor authentication with limited exceptions.
I know there's going to be some vendors that are going to have some issues.
Yeah, I agree with this one 1,000%.
Yeah.
However, you can't always do it because the vendors don't allow it.
Yeah. It's the vendors that'll be at issue here. So all of the vendors that haven't, implemented that, which, you should have already. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's really no excuse in what we're doing that you wouldn't. But just the functionality itself is one problem. Then turning it on using something secure is another problem. I hate the SMS thing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I like about this is I no longer have to say, I understand, Mr. C-suite owner, that you don't want MFA, but you want it for everybody else but you. Now I'm going to just point to this. Look, it's required. It's required under HIPAA.
But see, that's just going to make them mad anyway. You know, like I said, I had a doctor telling me I'm going to remove all of this stuff when you leave. And I'm like, okay, right, I'm doing my part.
Go right ahead. Yeah. But yeah, require it. They should require it.
Yeah.
I mean, we require it internally. So why not make it part of the security rule?
Yeah.
Number 14, require vulnerability scanning at least every 6 months and penetration testing at least once every 12 months.
Too many issues with this one. We already talked about it before we got on recording.
Yeah, so let's rehash this. First of all, there's already two major issues with this one. I see. Number one, doing a vulnerability scan is a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
There will always be vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Period. There is never a time there won't be vulnerabilities found. But if you're doing it once every 6 months, you don't even know if you fixed the vulnerabilities you found in the last scan 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Vulnerability, there should be no such thing as vulnerability scanning. It's vulnerability management.
Yeah.
It should be continuous.
Yeah.
That's like saying compliance scanning.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's, anyway.
Preach it, brother.
I just think it's useless.
Yeah.
Honestly. If you're just doing it.
Yeah. It should be happening all the time.
Right. If you're doing it every 6 months, I mean, it's pointless, really. The only thing that is maybe you'll catch something between every 6 months that shows you're screwed. That's it.
Yeah.
Better than nothing, maybe you could say.
And maybe that's why they say at least every 6 months, because it's better than nothing, but they couldn't go to monthly. I don't know, but we're going to have to get into the details of that for sure.
I would have argued a few years ago that doing it monthly was too expensive or whatever. But I mean, we have it now where we do it constantly.
Yeah.
Like it's every day, all the time, vulnerability scanning.
Yeah.
And it's not expensive anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you know how many different things we've got, and some from you and some that, you know, we're doing on our own with the vulnerability scans. And so we've got layers of this stuff there. If we're doing it, other people should be able to do it. And then
it's not expensive. But okay, so penetration testing. Okay, first thing that comes to mind is, okay, which one?
Yeah. We had a whole sell me this pen episode. Go check it out.
That's right.
So there's a lot. We're going to have to dig into the details there. But and that's certainly one. And then this is a pet one of ours, the next one.
Yeah. Well, before we go to this one, because I'm going to drop the mic on the next one. But before we go to it, this also is another thing I'm concerned about, that you're going to have these pen testers coming out of the woodwork, charging you out to wazoo, because you got to have a pen test every 12 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I hope they come out with more guidance on these things. But I do want our listeners to just be careful. When this first comes out and hits and becomes law, you're going to have a lot of people that's going to be out there trying to take advantage of other businesses on this stuff.
Yeah.
So just be aware of it.
Stick with us and get the specificity.
That's right. Yeah. Do business with the people you know.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. And turn your volume up. You need to hear this one. It's the shortest one in the list. It's 3 simple words. Require network segmentation.
Boom. Done.
That's it. That's it. Is there anything more you want to say on that one?
We'd best not. But we have talked about it many times, and we talk about our home networks are segmented. I mean, we do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, we'll just leave that one where it is.
Yeah. So if you don't know what the network segmentation is all about, I'm sure we talked about it in previous episodes, but grab your IT folks and talk to them about it. But basically, you just want systems only talking to the systems that they are necessary to talk to. Otherwise, stick them on something different. I was just on my wireless network earlier, connecting a client's computer for reasons to fix it and such. But I was like, wow, I've got 8 different segments on my network.
Yeah, when you go to
So-
do something, you're like, crap, I got to get on the other network.
Yep.
You know, to get to that thing, I got to get on another network. But yeah, it's those kind of things. And really, it's all the billings, you know, one segment. The clinical could be another segment, or the, you know, the clinical at the front and then the offices. I mean, it's logical, or it should be, you know, and there's things like VLANs, you'll hear that kind of phrases and stuff, but it keeps it so that if something happens in one of those little networks, it can't get outside of that and get to the others. That's really the whole intent. Okay.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, you should have a guest network, you should have an employee network, and then you should have a business network at a minimum.
At a minimum, yeah. 3 networks.
Yep.
I could.
All right. Number 16, requires separate technical controls for backup and recovery of ePHI and relevant electronic information systems. Yep. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Number 17, require regulated entities to review and test the effectiveness of certain security measures at least once every 12 months in place of the current general requirement to maintain security measures.
Because it just says you need to maintain them, and it's like, well, I loaded them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So test it. Number 18, almost done. Require business associates to notify covered entities and subcontractors to notify business associates upon activation of their contingency plans without unreasonable delay, but no later than 24 hours after activation.
This one I love. I can't help it. I love it. I love it.
Wow.
Now, however you want to look at it, the bottom line is there's too many times that the vendors don't tell them what's going on. You know, and they just try to keep it from them or whatever. No. Look, we've activated our contingency plan. We'll give you details in blah, 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 blah. But that lets me know you're down. You're not fully operational, and how it impacts my business.
Yeah.
And patient safety and all that kind of stuff. So
I just wonder how this is going to roll out, because I can think of numerous times where, for example, Microsoft 365 goes down and it affects us and it affects our clients. So I guess I'll be notifying everybody.
yeah, well, but it does say probably very specific in there about which applications.
I hope so.
You know, but again, this is when we got to get into the details and make it whatever you need to make it. But the problem is the number of times we've had the vendors not giving them any information, nothing.
Yeah,
and I get it, because if you're on the crisis side, but that's why we have to have crisis communications, because everybody's impacted. I know you're impacted substantially, but your impacts, you know, it's the, you know, when boom happens, we got to understand, you know, that blast radius. So
yeah, don't want to boom in your breeches. All right, so the last one here, number 19, and this is particularly relevant for the self-funded plans, or, you know, employers with access to ePHI. Require group health plans to include in their plan documents requirements for their group health plan sponsors to A, comply with the administrative, physical, and technical safeguards of the security rule, B, ensure that any agent to whom they provide ePHI agrees to implement the administrative, physical, and technical safeguards of the security rule, and C, notify their group health plans upon activation of their contingency plans without unreasonable delay, but no later than 24 hours after activation.
So basically what they're saying is, even though they don't technically fall under a business associate definition every time, because they don't, we're going to say you're still going to have to follow most of what the business associates have to follow.
Yep. So there you go for those self-funded plans.
Yeah, and there are very specific scenarios and exceptions and a lot of things. Going to have to get into the weeds on that one, but that's the least of my worries. I got plenty of others that I got to get down in the weeds with my machete.
Yeah. So that's the first draft of the NPRM. And of course, it might change before it comes out. And
well, it is the NPRM.
Final.
It is the NPRM. It's the first, it's our first draft of our thoughts. But the final could be different.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Apparently not well, but
the NPRM isn't going to change. The only thing that we'll get is the final rule with the responses to the comments that we make between now and March 7th, unless it is extended.
And whatever that happens to be, we'll talk about it here. So,
oh yeah. And in the boot camp, and in the club, and HIPAA for MSPs. Yeah, it's going to be everywhere because, hey, this is, what we're built to handle is this kind of stuff. So,
yeah. And when it does come out and you have all these additional things you have to do, then reach out. That's what we're here for.
Yes.
We will help you do it so you don't get scammed by the scammers. All right, folks, that's our show for today. Remember to follow us and share us on social media and send us to somebody that you love. And if you have none of those, send them to people you hate. Either way, we'll take it. Remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.